I'm like, Mom, I can't stay here. She's like, why? What's the matter? I'm like, first of all, I'm pretty sure this bed has not been washed since Reagan was in office. There are literal holes in the wall. There is a bag of still full trash that reeks in the corner.
Hello world, how are ya? Thanks for tuning in again to the second podcast I've uploaded, but the first episode of a show called Talk 30 to Me. Now what you just heard was a snippet from an interview with my good friend Camron Combs. Now he's talking about something that we'll get into later on in the interview, and I hope you stick around and listen. But I'd like to break down what Talk 30 to Me is. It's going to be an interview show, much more interested in the subject, the person I'm interviewing or my guest, then it's not as irreverent as something like the Oscar prediction show I did with good friends. Now, I think they're all important, and all of my shows are going to be fun and entertaining. But this one's a little more personal. And this episode of Talk 30 to Me is actually brought to you by a club that my good friend Camron has a huge hand in, EFA, Eagle Filmmakers Association, the film club for everyone. You can find them every Wednesday from 6:30 to 8:30 in the Student Center, or you can look them up on social media, YouTube, Facebook. They do some great work, and they're a great organization. Get involved. Now, here's my interview with Camron Combs. Cam, it's a pleasure to have you. How are you?
It's good to be here. I'm doing really well.
Good. I'm glad you're doing good. I've missed you. It's been about a week since I've seen you.
I know. We go such long stretches of time with no contact.
How do we do it? So today I want to talk about a lot with you. You're a fellow podcaster. You're a live streamer. Man of many trades. A filmmaker as well. Actually, EFA. Did you start EFA?
So this is interesting because the EFA was an organization back before I was even, I've now since graduated, back before I was even at Eastern.
What year are you referencing?
I think like 2008, 2007, okay. Something in that. I'm not even sure, to tell you the truth.
Right.
Because by the time I got there, it was being restarted by Stephanie Yagiru. She's going to kill me if she ever hears this for pronouncing her name wrong. But with that, we kind of came together with a couple other people and like brought it back to life. So I consider myself a founding member in that anybody that is in the EFA today or will join it in the future is following a framework that I set up, not those, EFAs past.
So what's different? What did you change?
The direction changed a lot. They used to have a nice emphasis on exhibition. Now it's kind of a more like educational and production-focused organization, whereas before it actually was a film festival. Even the Facebook group that we inherited talked about the EFA Film Festival, which has not been a thing in a number of years.
So is it something that like other students on campus would make, or members of the group would make and then bring their films and showcase their films there, or was it like all over Ipsy, or like do you even know?
I know that the idea for it was to kind of be like its own little microcosm of like EMU, local filmmakers, local creators doing their thing and like showing off their best work.
Right.
I can't speak as a matter of like any sort of importance in terms of whether or not I actually got off the ground with that.
Okay.
But I know that in numerous conversations with their staff advisor, Hansen, Mr. Hansen, we all know who that is if we're Eastern students. That's what he always like envisioned, what he wanted for the EFA back in the day.
Wow. That's interesting because he's heavily involved. He's one of the most involved like faculty that I've seen as club sponsors. He's gotten much more involved, in the past, I would say 2 years. So that's really cool that he's been down with the change in direction as well as the students have. One last thing about that. Yeah. Who's your class that you came in with? What other members?
First starting off, it was me and Stephanie. It was me and Stephanie trying to get people in there, trying to do things. Stephanie basically came to me one day and said, "Hey, I'm trying to bring this thing back. Do you want to help?"
Back? Was it dead?
It was completely gone. It had been dead for at least a year.
So how do you go about reviving a club?
Well, this is actually interesting because there was some bad blood, let's say, between a lot of the like officials and the EFA.
Okay.
Back before when it was a previous organization. So a lot of it was just, hey, we're not those guys. We promise. We actually want to do things the right way.
Right.
I'll never forget. We had someone that like they changed our room reservation for a meeting one night. And she said, you guys are way more helpful. It seemed like the last guys that were part of your org did whatever they could to not follow the rules.
Well, that's not a glowing review of EFA, but I promise you they're amazing now. And you should check them out.
That was before anyone that's like in there now even had an idea of what it was. This is an entirely different group of people, different organization, different like theme and like vibe entirely.
What was the first piece of work? What was the first film you were a part of with EFA?
That I was a part of
is it available on YouTube?
Unless they've taken it down, it's still available. I haven't looked at it in a while, but it should still be there. It's a short called Viral. It is a like minute-long short. We shot it in one night in the student center. It was so much fun. And the idea was that those chain emails that everyone has gotten and no one ever forwards anymore,
right?
It actually infects you with like a zombie virus. Because those weren't done to death yet at the time. And that was the idea, and we had actors that I still don't work with today in that short. People that are now helping run the EFA were in there. And it's, again, a minute long.
Any current members?
David Pierce Anderson and Sarah Potoraki both were actors in that short film.
And an alumni of the See Here pod, David Pierce Anderson. I love how you use his full name, Dave.
He would get mad if I didn't.
So. Dave, as we refer to him in the everyday tongue, was Ben.
His friends call him Dave.
Yes. He actually mentioned that when on our pod. I don't want to talk too much on this pod about my last pod, but he was like, for purposes of the podcast, I'm Dave. So we're good to call him Dave.
All right, I'm gonna call him David Pierce Anderson now, just to be different.
Jesus Christ.
But no, Dave was in it. Dave was a true sport. We had another actor named Matthew Huff, who I think we made him fall and like jump on the ground about 20 times that night.
Was Brian around?
I think he was around. I don't think that he really took part in it. I think he was around that night.
Okay.
I know that another alumni who has since moved on, Dred Geib, shot it. Started a very, not too long, but a long career of he and I working together on all kinds of projects, which is actually really fun to see now.
Who has since moved on. That is right. Rest in peace, Dred. We miss you. All right, so you're speaking about working with him. Is there anything you guys have in the works?
It's actually funny. We are actually currently in the early, and I mean the earliest of early pre-production for a short film we're going to shoot over the course of the summer that is unlike anything we've done yet and is doing so many things that I've wanted to do since I started making films.
Wow.
I cannot wait. We're super geeked about it. It's the kind of project where when I talk about it, I just get super excited.
Right. That's right, folks. We are remaking Twilight.
What can I say?
All for you.
Vampires got a sparkle.
They do. Talk about someone that's been done to death. So, don't mean to derail you there, but that's what they call in the business a teaser. I want everybody to be a little excited about the film. We don't got to get too much into that. But I want to get to the root of why you like filmmaking. Where did it start? When?
Oh, man. I can tell you that the film that inspired me to like study and want to make films was Gangs of New York by Scorsese.
Scorsese, yeah. Daniel Day-Lewis.
Yep.
DiCaprio.
Liam Neeson.
Chris Rock. I'm just kidding. Chris Rock.
One of these things is not like the other.
Yeah, Chris Rock's in another New York movie. Keep going. Sorry.
No, it's interesting. I don't know exactly when it came out. It's been a while now. But it was, for anyone that hasn't seen it, I'm using air quotes here. You guys can't see it. But it was like historical fiction. And then it was a super fictionalized, almost like fantasy-esque 1850s-ish New York. And it's the story of like these rival gangs and like a person's like rising up to overthrow like the big gang boss of the area. And I loved every second of that movie from beginning to end. And it was one of those things where it was a movie where even I was probably 15, maybe even younger than that. I don't know. Years are hard sometimes. But it was the first time where I realized that film could actually be still entertaining and super fun and enjoyable and also be layered and depth and have multiple things going on at once.
Is that your favorite Scorsese film?
No.
What is?
You know, you never ask a film major their favorite film because it changes every minute.
Right, yeah. While you're thinking, I had a
Yeah.
similar thought.
Still thinking. We have to come back to this. 'cause
Yeah,
I'm not gonna
sure.
forget.
And it's not even your favorite film in general, just Scorsese, and he's got a wealth of work. But I was predicting the Oscars, and every week, I think there's a new favorite or a new logical explanation to take home the award. This week, Get Out won, Best Original Screenplay at the Writers Guild Awards, and I don't necessarily think that means it did.
That's awesome.
Over Three Billboards and Shape, which were the presumptive favorites to win it.
Yep.
But I don't know the history of how that correlates to success in the Best Picture race.
Sure.
But it certainly gratifies. I said it was the lock of the year to win Best Screenplay, and I think actually now it could. The way things are shaping up, I don't know when votes are due or ballots are due, but I really think Get Out and Call Me by Your Name could emerge as two strong contenders for Best Picture.
I think it's Goodfellas.
You think it's Goodfellas? There we go.
I'm not sure. I gotta look at the actual filmography, but I think people would be angry if I didn't say Goodfellas. Hi, Mom. But yeah, I don't know. This year, 2017 was an amazing year for movies. There were 3 different occasions throughout the course of the year. I think at pretty different points too. I'm not entirely sure. Where I was like, I've just seen a movie that is now one of my all-time favorite movies.
Let me try to rattle them off. What I think are yours. Is Baby Driver in the conversation?
Baby Driver's definitely in the conversation.
Get Out?
Get Out is definitely in the conversation.
Shape?
Yes.
Is that the 3?
Yep, those are the 3. Those movies were movies that really couldn't have been anything else. To me, they felt like films that had to be films.
And they had to be made by the people that made them. I think
that's the thing too.
Yeah.
You have Guillermo del Toro in Shape of Water. I know I pronounce his name perfect. No one correct me.
If only we had a Mexican around here. How about?
I cannot pronounce names to save my life. But he's always done that sympathetic monster movie.
Yes.
Which is funny because a lot of his work I'm not a big fan of.
So here's a movie of his I don't particularly like.
Please say Blade 2.
Pacific Rim.
Okay.
And of Pacific Rim, in the most odd way, I still see Shape of Water and Pacific Rim being from the same person, but just better, it's cut from better cloth. Pacific Rim is a sympathetic monster movie. There's these, I don't know if you know the plot of it, but humans make these machines that you become the monster you fear, is essentially that, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's the one story he tells well. Whether it's Pan's Labyrinth or whatever, it's that's the human condition is to become the monster you fear.
Absolutely. And you can look at some of his not smaller but less well-known films too. Is it just Afraid of the Dark?
That isn't the newest one. Yeah, or is Crimson something, right?
Did he do Crimson Peaks?
Yes. I believe he did Crimson
This
Peaks.
is from a few years ago. It's about tooth fairy monsters.
Mama?
No, it's called Afraid of the Dark. Or it's some combination of Are You Afraid of the Dark? But I'm pretty sure it's just Afraid of the Dark.
I have a strict rule on this podcast. We do not look anything up as we were speaking about it. So we must be wrong.
Well,
and
it's been fun.
Yes.
I don't know if I can survive in this climate, but it's something like that. It's something along those lines. It was a movie that the first 10 minutes were amazing. It was actually pointed out to me too that he has a very distinct connection with the human mouth in his movies.
Ooh, go into that more.
Again, this was not my point. This was Dredd. Hi, buddy.
Rest in peace. And Dredd. We talk about him a lot for some reason.
Great guy.
I just want to say, you get a lot of names wrong. Credit where credit is due. You got Dredd guy right.
If I got it wrong, I'd be hearing about it in about 20 minutes. So I don't have a choice in the matter on that one. But because I never noticed it before, but it makes perfect sense. He is known for messing up the human mouth. So for example, in
Spoiler
Pan's
warnings.
Yeah, you got me. In Pan's Labyrinth, spoiler warnings, you have that. Now I would use the word iconic, just face crunching in scene.
With the bottle?
Yes.
Oh god,
I think
it's
it's
brutal.
A bottle. Yeah.
Yes, that's
where
brutal.
it just goes on so much longer than is comfortable.
Yeah.
And just more and more viscera starts coming back up, and you're this is a thing we're doing now.
The sounds make that almost unbearable for me.
But then in Afraid of the Dark, the Tooth Fairy movie, Like the first, like the only thing I remember about the film was the opening, where it's like them like pulling teeth out of this guy's mouth.
In Shape, he puts his finger through the guy's mouth.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
moves him.
And then it's the
Being
the fish hook.
Yes, it is like a fish hook, exactly. It's symbolic, but also I'm trying to be vague in case people still want to see that film, which I recommend. I couldn't recommend that movie enough. I love it. I want to shift away from films though, because I think we could talk about that for.
I can't look it up and I can't spoil them. Oh, we're in trouble.
Yeah, this is gonna be a rough one. You can't spoil live streams though, So I feel like we should move to that. Let's talk about your live stream. What would we call it? 10-year career? What do you want to?
No.
Gentle Grizzly, by the way, on Twitch.
With an E, because I'm special. It's GRIZZLEY. Because I wanted to make sure that if someone went to Google search it, I was going to be the top, not the bottom.
Makes sense.
I like to think so. I've been streaming for a year and a half now-ish.
What games?
Mostly just a little, and I say unknown, I mean unknown card game called Hex. It is the kind of card game, because everyone knows Hearthstone that plays those kinds of games. Everyone's heard of Hearthstone. They know Magic the Gathering. Hex is a digital-only card game that in a lot of ways is a better version of Magic because they just have more like wiggle room. They can make cooler cards because it's all digital. But the thing that got me into streaming Hex, and I've said this on stream ad nauseum, I've said this so many times that people are going to roll their eyes and be like, yeah, okay, we get it, shut up. The community that Hex players have is very small. But it is such like a giving and like actual community feeling community. I won't play League of Legends. I won't play Overwatch anymore. Sure is. Can I swear on the stream?
Absolutely.
Sure as hell not going to stream Overwatch.
It's also a pod, not a stream.
Okay, this is what I'm saying.
I'm just kidding.
This is what I'm saying here. Can't look it up. Gotta use the right words. All right, well, let's see if I can balance this book.
What's
in my head
next?
While I'm at
I
it.
can't be racist. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Well, if we've crossed the line, I must go now. I'm sorry. I don't have anything left. My material's all been used. This pod.
Yes. And you wouldn't stream Overwatch, is what you were saying, because
it's just so toxic.
It's inundated too. It's saturated.
Like, to be fair, I'm a tiny streamer. I'm very small. I try to do things intelligently, but I'm still a tiny streamer. I'm not trying to get big. I stream once a week. I'm not the guy who's like, I want to do this for 100 hours a week. I think that would actually kill me.
Some would say it's a curse or a hex, if you will. Cameron's punching me right now. If you could see, no.
And one more.
Yeah.
That one's for Dread. May he rest in peace.
Yes. You leave him out of this. You let his soul be at peace.
I like to describe myself as a man with many interests. Not talents. I'm not that presumptuous. But I have many interests.
Right.
In the last 2 years, I have experimented with several different major filmmaking roles. I write whenever I get a chance. I live stream. I try to start a podcast. We'll start that again someday soon, hopefully. Soon TM.
So you said you were trying to start a podcast, hopefully soon?
I tried.
Yeah.
I did. I had what I thought was an amazing idea. I've never had more fun on a show. No offense.
We're only 17 minutes in, buddy. Let's.
I worked in a comic book shop on and off since 2012.
What comic book shop?
Fun for All Comics and Games.
Okay.
They're on Carpenter Road in Ypsilanti. By Target.
Not a sponsor.
Could be a sponsor.
Could be a sponsor. We'll talk.
I know a guy.
Yeah. And
the best part of that job is with fellow employees and customers are those fights. Not the fist fights. Those happen occasionally. It's not my fault. It was one time. But those who wins in a fight? Doc Brown or Doctor Who? And it's, just those who wins in a fight, the Hulk or Superman.
Right.
And person A's objectively Superman always wins. That's the point of his character, and that person is boring.
Right.
And no one talks to that person for very long. But you get that person who's super big Hulk fan. He's like, you know what? No, the Hulk wins. Let me tell you the 36-step reason why. So the show was Metal Media, and it was a debate show covering all spans of pop culture. It was 4 people getting together and just fighting about culture, pop culture things. My favorite question I think we asked. We recorded a couple shows,
right?
But because of some post issues, it just never happened, never got off the ground, and it has now since become a monster.
It has moved on with Dread.
Yes.
I'm
you're
done.
keeping it company.
Yeah, that's it. I'm declaring that the last dead Dread joke.
Is that joke dead?
Yes. It killed him. It killed it. I mean, no, just go.
So my favorite question we asked, we recorded I think 3 or 4 shows. It was, pitch me a gritty, realistic reboot of an old school Saturday morning cartoon.
Ooh.
And it was, again, 4 different people from 4 very different, in theory, media backgrounds. I had an actor, I had a stand-up comedian, a couple writer friends.
Right.
People that just loved comics, people that just knew their stuff. And that round was like an American Beauty-esque Garfield movie. So like
what
that like
the hell
that like
does that
slice of life, like not surreal, but like that hyper realistic like Garfield, where it's like just going through whatever the main character's name is, not Garfield. The guy.
John?
I think that's right. I can't look it up. I'm not allowed.
It's definitely John.
Then my buddy, he said,
In like the movie Hates Mondays or something. I'm
but like John is like Garfield's not real.
Yes.
So John is just like this super depressed like loner guy.
Right. Okay.
And so it's that movie as it plays out, and he's like, Garfield is not actually real, but
Wait, let's get into Garfield theory for a second. Are you suggesting that the thought bubbles we read in his comics and the one-on-ones that Garfield has with the audience are imagined by John?
That was kind of like the pitch that he gave. Yeah.
The pitch, and who is he?
My buddy Rob Havey. If it wasn't him, I'm sorry. It's been a while.
I mean, yeah, it to me though that is interesting in itself, because the way I always read, I love how we're talking about Garfield like it's a text.
Yep.
Like it's like, the ideological reading of this. But I mean that seriously. When I read that, I always assumed we were in on Garfield's jokes because John was, or the world around him, or the world around Garfield was ridiculous.
Yeah.
And we were getting like he was the straight guy, He was the guy like, oh, here's why the world's dumb. We're reacting with it together. But I like that take on Garfield.
And I think it would be a good movie. The joke was, of course, you have to get Bill Murray to reprise his role. But I would love to see that movie. So then my buddy Christian Murphy, stand-up comic in the area, I tell him I said hello. Or it's Christian Royce. That's his stage name. My bad.
Should we blur that out? Should I beep the original name out? Okay.
Nah. If he gets mad, I'll deal with it. I don't know. He pitched, and this is probably my favorite pitch. Set in modern day Detroit, a Street Sharks reboot.
Well, what's Street Sharks?
So, for anyone that doesn't know, because not everyone is a pop culture obsessive person, Street Sharks was one of like 6 or 7 different Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle just rip-off shows. Not like inspired by, like actual, we have 4 people. They were human. They've now been transformed into animals, or were always animals, and now they fight crime, which usually also consists of other animal-based foes.
Oh my god. Did they have toys that you could fit like a hand puppet on?
Oh, they totally. I don't know if they had hand puppets. They had toys, though.
And it was just like a really like beefed up Great White.
Yep.
Was one of the... Yes, I had those toys growing up. I had no idea that's what it was from.
And their big thing was because, turtles live in the sewer. That's how their whole myth in pizza.
Yeah.
So these guys would their dorsal fins would break and mess up the road as they were going through.
Right.
So you would explain the terrible road situation in Detroit with these Street Shark reboots. And he ended up pitching it to the point where he's like, oh yeah, and then we're going to add Michael Bay's Transformers. And it was in that moment he lost the round.
He tried to create he wanted to fit this into the Hasbro universe?
Yeah,
wow.
Just like the Hasbro multiverse, because reasons.
Have you heard about that, by the way? They want to branch. Which I don't know what else the universe can consist of.
For Hasbro?
For Hasbro.
I mean, what do you get? You get G.I. Joe, you get Transformers.
But G.I. Joe has had a history of the failed movies. I shouldn't say failed. I mean, I think they make 2. And I think they probably made their money back, but it's not the billion-dollar returns that they want, because film companies, our production
remade
studios.
The Mummy 3 times in the last 20 years too. They're not exactly shy about these things anymore.
But they were trying to launch that new monster universe.
And how well did that go?
Not good. You know what? But I'll defend Tom Cruise to the death. I'm gonna have an entire pod one day with me and Dave. Are gonna have the best movie runners of all time.
He is a great runner. That's exactly where I was gonna go with that too.
He's the best movie runner, actually. And spoiler alert for that pod, but you should know that
Tom Hanks is honorable mention there for sure.
the premise of the pod that we've agreed on is that everyone's going for 2 through 5. But we all know who the real winner is. Yeah. So that's a pod for another day. We're wrapping up here. I want to ask you something that I want to ask everybody on this. Where are you from and where are you going?
So I was born and raised right around here, right in Ypsilanti, Michigan. I have lived within 40 miles, I'm pretty sure, of this college campus my entire life. With that said, I try to travel as much as humanly possible. And where am I going? Wherever life takes me. I was once given a piece of advice that has stuck with me forever. I was in a parking lot right over here, and I can see it pretty much from where we're at right now. I was talking to a professor of mine, who's also someone that I had known for almost a decade at that point.
Do you feel comfortable naming him?
I mean, it was Dr. Heather Neff.
Naming her? Excuse me?
I feel comfortable naming her.
Okay.
Because she'd be like, yeah, okay, he remembers what I said. I'm proud of him kind of thing.
Right, yeah.
She told me, because I was studying game design, I was determined to make that work. And she really wanted me to study literature and learn about the world from that perspective. And she said, Cameron, you are way too smart to end your life in the same place you began it.
Right.
And that is advice that has haunted me in my dreams ever since. So thank you so much for that. But I think that's right. I think it's important.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily. I was never been the whole like I must leave when I turn 16. It is time to go and go west. Never been me. But there is just so much to experience and understand and appreciate about the world outside of this little bubble. And again, I've traveled as much as I could realistically. I've been on. I think it was 3 years ago. I basically took July off from life. Or June. It was June.
Where'd you go?
I left at the beginning of June, went from here in Ypsi to Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, did all of Gettysburg by myself. I did this by myself. Then from Gettysburg, I went to Philadelphia.
What was the inspiration for this? I mean, how'd you afford it?
How did I afford it? Well, my house had gotten broken into, and I'd had a whole lot of stuff stolen. And I hit a really big personal wall at that point in time. I just had to do something that... I always say that when I hit a rut, I have to do something stupid.
Interesting.
So I gave my family... I gave, like, my parents. Not even, like, my family. Like, my parents, I'm like, hey, I'm leaving in 2 days.
Bit of notice?
Yeah. No notice, hardly at all.
Right.
Packed a bag and just left. Went... And again, hit like, and it's we don't have the time to get into it really.
Right. Yeah.
Someday I'm down to share that, but
seems
hit a
interesting.
Big personal wall, but went from Ypsi to Gettysburg to Philadelphia to Virginia Beach to see a friend. That was the only time on the month-long trip I was with someone else. Spent 10 days in Virginia Beach hanging out with him, seeing him. Went from there to Nashville, Tennessee, spent a total of 26 minutes in Nashville. And then went from Nashville.
How do you know 26 minutes?
We'll go back there, I promise.
Okay.
And then from Nashville to New Orleans. The plan in New Orleans, see, I'm going to say it all the different ways so no one's mad. Or everyone's mad, take your pick. And from New Orleans back all the way in like 1 day back.
So from New Orleans here would be the last way to say that. So, no, 26 minutes. How do you know that?
So, I'm not dumb. I mean, okay. I like to think I'm not dumb.
Well, you're here.
I know. Not everyone's perfect. I get there, and I check the reviews for this hotel. They're like, yeah, it's great. It's not, the best accommodations, but it's clean. It's fine. It's like a 3.5-star reviews on Google, which is fine. It's not great, but it's cheap. And it's like less than 5 blocks from downtown Nashville. I'm like, this is going to be perfect. I'll stay the night, do Nashville the next day, and go to New Orleans the day after. So I get there, and my first sign should have been the bulletproof glass in the lobby. Second sign should have been the fact that I waited for 45 minutes behind one human being to get a room.
Jesus.
I got neither of those signs. Those signs went right behind my head, so I put my car into the first one. So I guess technically I spent an hour in there. But 26 minutes, and actually that's what we'll get there. I'm jumping ahead of myself. I get into the first room. I turn the light on. And I call my mother.
As one does.
I'm like, Mom, I can't stay here. She's like, why? What's the matter? I'm like, first of all, I'm pretty sure this bed has not been washed since Reagan was in office. There are literal holes in the wall. There is a bag of still full trash that reeks in the corner.
Jeez.
The lock has been smashed off of the door. There is a hole in the door going to the bathroom. Open the bathroom. Turn on the light. Black mold has lived in this area for years. I'm like, all right, well.
Did you get your money back?
Well, we'll get there. The story's not done yet.
Okay.
So I'm like, all right, I can't stay here. So I go back to the front office with my buddy, the very, very efficient hotel employee. He takes, another 45 minutes. Like, all right, well, here's a different room. I'm like, all right, thanks. And again, if you've ever stayed in a hotel, most of them are like that overly, like sickeningly polite.
Yes.
This guy was not having any of it. I get to the second room and my key doesn't work, but that's fine because the door just swings open anyway.
Comforting.
It was great. I turn on the light and I just watch about 30 cockroaches. So turn on the light and roaches scatter. Like all four directions of the wind, roaches are going everywhere. The roaches live there. I am but a visitor. So I decide in that moment that I'm not staying in Nashville. Nashville has officially been stricken from the trip itinerary because I'm not dealing with that. So I go back to the front desk.
Why'd you choose Nashville to begin with?
It was on the way.
On the way to New Orleans?
Well, this was the thing about the trip. Let me finish the story and I'll give you more about the trip.
Okay.
So I get there and this guy spends another 45 minutes to an hour getting my money back because I'm not paying for those rooms. Like the doors don't even work. They're small caves, not rooms at that point. So the 26 minutes I spent in Nashville was driving through the city on my way past it.
I see how you know. Okay.
Yep. How do I know? I checked my clock at the beginning and the end because I knew how this story had to end. I needed a number.
It needed a number. I love it.
I had to know how long I spent there. So that was the thing about this trip. Again, doing things that are stupid. I didn't know where I was going when I set out. I didn't have a plan, didn't have a direction. I knew I was going to stop and see my buddy at some point in Virginia Beach. That is the only thing I knew. I got in my car and I was like, I like history. I've been to Gettysburg before. Let's go again and do it, at our own speed. Went and did that. I'm like, Philly. It's not too far. I like Philly cheesesteaks. Let's see what the deal is. Drove out to Philly and did that. Then it was like,
and you knew the friend, Virginia Beach.
And then, yeah. And then
there's
I'm like,
the connection, yeah.
Like, all right, I've always wanted to try crawfish in New Orleans. What's between here and there? Because that's a long drive. I'm like, okay, we can, make a monthly tour, go to Nashville, and, then hit New Orleans. So I do that. Spend 26 minutes in Nashville. Because I also spend a lot of time sleeping in my car to save money because it's just whatever. Sleeping in the car, then getting the next day hotel room. It was nice. Loved doing it. It was fantastic. It's against the law in a lot of states, though, so be aware.
Where do you go? Rest areas?
Rest areas. You are allowed to rest. You are not technically allowed to sleep overnight. Which, to be fair, it was Mississippi and it was June. So at 3 o'clock in the morning, it's 105 degrees. And it's muggy.
Right, would you sleep? You obviously wouldn't sleep with the air on or anything. Like, you had to sleep in the...
Let me paint you this picture. So I drive a Buick Century. It's a nice full-size sedan, but it's still a sedan.
Right.
I am 6'3" and I weigh somewhere in the ballpark of 330. I got my head up against the driver's window, my feet in the passenger side floorboards. And every 30 minutes I am waking up because it is just so hot that I can't breathe.
Jesus.
Because my windows are also up. I'm not getting mugged. Are you kidding me? Turn on the car, blast the AC, get it to what feels like Arctic temperatures, then turn the car back off. And hope and pray that I can fall asleep before it gets hot again.
Right. Well, you said it was muggy, right?
It was muggy. It was awful.
So, I mean, how many muggers were out there if it's that? And on that note, Cam, I've annoyed him with a pun for the last time today. I appreciate you so much for coming on.
Yeah, man, it was a blast.
Thank you. I hope to have you on again on another episode of Talk 30 to Me. So that will do it for the first episode of Talk 30 to Me. Thank you very much, Cam, for being on. Thank you, EFA, for being a friend of the show. And thank you to the listener. If you've made it this far, I can't thank you enough. You're helping make a dream come true, to be quite honest. So long, world.